A matcap's a way to capture lighting and reflections and add it all to an object so that you can usually use it for sculpting. You'll see it with things like this quite a lot. So these are the basic matcaps that come with Nomad, and you'll find them in ZBrush and in Blender. Now, what happens if we want to go a bit crazier and make some of these and then combine them into an image, and rather than just use it for sculpting, use it as a creative tool outside of Nomad? So this first video is going to look at how to make them, and then the next video will be how to combine them, and we'll make it into this lovely character that you see on the screen now. So before we dive right into matcaps then, just one thing to note is there's a cursor on the screen. Why is that interesting? You would think it's not. Well, this is an iPad. So you would not be used to a cursor on an iPad unless you've got one of the latest ones, which we've just upgraded to. So if you're used to my videos, you're used to seeing me using a 2018 iPad, and I did that for a reason, which is that I didn't want the latest hardware to record all of my Nomad videos, and that's because I want people to use it on middle of the road equipment. And now I've done that Nomad course and everything was fine. I'm quite happy to move my equipment up to this. So what's good about this is I bought the Apple keyboard, which I do find massively expensive for what it is. But it's such a useful piece of kit for, not so much for when I'm sculpting and when I'm doing this kind of work, but if I'm doing any writing, or if I ever want the iPad to be more like a Mac or a PC, then this keyboard is perfect. And what it does give me is this cursor. So what I'm finding is I've bought a mouse that's not Apple. I just went and got a USB-C connected mouse. And I got a connector so that I can, from USB-C, go to a network cable as well. So I've got the iPad connected up to the full power of my internet rather than Wi-Fi. And obviously, we'll see how it goes with the cursor. So I won't be sculpting and using it in my own work, but when I'm working on something like a tutorial, then it's great to have a cursor. So with a matcap then, that's basically what a matcap is it's a material that's been captured. And what does that actually mean? Well, it's a complete material, and the lighting and even the reflections as well, all added into one image. And then that image is mapped on the front of whatever you're working on. So if you see a red wax like this in Nomad or ZBrush or Blender or any of the programs that have matcaps, you'll think you're sculpting. So let me just use the move tool, and I'll move around, large brush, and just move this around and move the model around. It looks like we're sculpting with clay. Now, we're not sculpting with clay because this is a material that's been projected from the front. And how do I know that? Well, if you use 3 fingers on your iPad and swipe left and right, you can see that it rotates the image around on the model, which doesn't really help you because it gives you this seam at the side. And you'll notice that the image at the back is the same as the image at the front. So I don't really ever suggest moving that around unless you've built a matcap that's designed to be moved around, so it's got a very predictable blend around the edge, which we'll get to later. So how do I change my matcaps? Well, first of all, let's go to this panel here, which is if you're in 1.33, the same as me, if you've upgraded, you'll see it's like this. There are extra things in 1.33. Incidentally, we did a video on all the new features last week, so take a look up above now and you can have a look at those. So these are your matcaps. These are the default matcaps. And as you can see, if I switch to this one and then use my 3-finger roll around, it's basically a white edge all the way around. So it's useless if you've moved it. It's an illusion, for want of a better word. But while it's got that illusion on at the front, it makes you think like you're sculpting in with that matcap. So as you can see, if you change to this one, you get a creamy bony colour, then a metal with look, focus on this bit here. This is the rim light at the edge. So it looks like you've got light bouncing on, and that's where that gets good. If you look at things like this one, and maybe even back to the red one, you've got these lights coming at the side. Now they're all in the image, not in the model. You can't move the light around. So that's what a matcap is, as opposed to this, which is physically based rendering. And with this, you can pick an environment and it's really reflecting in your model. And that's a whole different ball game with what are called high dynamic range images that you can bring in on your own. And then you can move the lighting around, which is a whole nother tutorial. So back to matcaps then. So if we've got all of these matcaps here, then surely we've got enough to do everything we would ever want. Let me use double tap undo, and let's go back to the sphere. Well, no, because we want certain scenarios where we want different matcaps. Now, if you look down here, I've got more matcaps than you have if you've got the standard. And if you click through them and then scroll down, you'll see I've got hundreds of matcaps. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to make all of these available to you, because these are ones I've made during the courses, the YouTube channel, over the last... These are all fairly new, and some of them are a bit random, like this one. They're bits grabbed off the internet. They're bits... generally, they're not anybody else's matcaps. They're my matcaps. But, for example, this one is a skin one that I made. And why this is useful is it's got the little... pores baked in, and that means, again, if you rotate it round, it's not ideal, so you wouldn't want to be moving this. But while you're sculpting, and let me just sculpt on it with a brush, low intensity, while you're sculpting, you've got the effect of a skin straight away, and it's got this light baked in around the edges, around the sides, so it can be quite useful just to give you a nice effect of skin very early on. Again, it's not what we would do for final renders, or it's not a texture that you'd use with what we call a texture map or anything like that, but it's a great way to sculpt sometimes, and it can give you some fantastic effects. You can even go like this, which is like a comic book effect. You've got different metals. You've got, actually, I think that was an image of the moon. What you might find as well, I don't know whether you can see it very well, look how blocky that is. It looks really pixelated. So if you take this panel topology and go up a resolution, I've just gone up a couple now, so in fact I won't go any higher. That's now at 1.57 million. The resolution's a lot better, so you can improve it like that. And again, you can move this around, but don't go to those edges. You know, you might just want to tweak the light in a little bit as you're working with it, just by moving the matcap. So on to the next bit then. So go back to our matcaps. Again, you've seen all of these. So the thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use these. We're going to make something like this one and something like this one. So what we're going to get is like a copper bronzy patina effect, and we're going to do it in two ways. We're going to make two matcaps, and then we're going to render out or screenshot out one of them, and then we're going to screenshot out the other one, and then we're going to combine them in the next video with Procreate, which is my 2D app of choice on the iPad. And what we'll do is I'll at the end of this video, I'll give you all of my matcaps, so you can be playing with those. And for the next video, I'll encourage you all to have a go at mixing the matcaps and then mixing them up in your own images on your own models. I'll just use a pre-made model at that point. Okay, so let's go and start. Let's download some imagery, and we can move to Procreate, I think. So switch over to Procreate. Now I've downloaded just for this exercise. I've downloaded a few different JPEGs, basically, of textures. Be careful when you're downloading. Make sure you hit Creative Commons, so that you're not taking anybody else's work, or buy them if you want to buy a pack. They're cheap enough now, or simply just Google it and make sure it's you're not stealing some other artist's work. But before we go into that little bit, let's have a look at making a template. So I keep a template in mine, and I'll show you what I mean. So I use a 1024 by 1024. So hit the plus, and you make basically a square template. Now, can turn the background off if you like. And what we want to do is now basically select a circle and make a template over the top of our image. So what does that mean? So we'll go up here, top left, and we'll go to ellipse selection. We're going to start at the top left and we'll go all the way to the bottom right. And you'll find if you match that exactly, you'll get right to the edge. Now what we've done is we've selected out the edge. So if I drag an image in, you'll see that it's gone in, it's basically flood filled into the middle. So double tap and 2-finger tap and it will undo it. And why did I do that? Because what I want to do is I want to invert it. You see down here at the bottom where it says invert? So we'll start again and we'll go all the way from the top to all the way to the bottom. It's easy enough to do. And then before we do the fill, we'll do invert, and then you can choose a color. So I'll choose mid-gray. You can do white or black, and I keep both of those in there. And the reason I keep both is sometimes I want white going to the edge and sometimes I want black going to the edge. I'll show you what I mean again, just to make sure you're understanding. So I'll go white for the first one, drag the button across, and if you have gone right to the edge, it shouldn't go all the way around. So see here at the bottom, I slightly missed it, but not a massive issue. And we can correct it a little bit by hitting this button here. Let me just use the mouse to show you. This button here, and then that will give you, this button and then this button, and that'll allow you to, if you hit freeform here, that'll allow you to just adjust it a tiny bit down. I just want it touching that edge. So I'm going to zoom in now. It's being a little bit of a pain because I'm using there we go. I just want it touching that edge. It's a lot easier in programs like Illustrator. Be very exact with this, and you might know better ways of doing this if you're a 2D illustrator or a 2D graphic designer is more to the point. So now what you've got, and just to prove it, I'll change the background to a silly green. So now what we've got is overlay. Now I'll duplicate that, and then I'll go up here and we'll look for the curves tool, and we'll just go up on the left, down on the right, and that's basically inverted. Curves are a bit different if you're not used to them. You would normally be looking for something like an invert button, but if you get used to using curves, that's a quick way of doing it. So now we've got a black version and a white version and a green background. So we can turn that green background off now. So what I want to do now is I want to start building my two materials. So I need to bring in some imagery. So what we'll do for a minute is we'll turn everything off, and then we'll go up top left. In actions, we'll go, in actions under add, we'll go insert a photo, because I think I left them in the photo. And I'll just bring in some of these. Now it looks really patchy, so I'm not too worried about that. But that one would be the perfect coppery colour. If we want to make it a bit different, you can duplicate it. You can go up here, rotate it, and then we could use what's called blend modes. So in here, I could blend one over the other. So pick a blend mode that gives you the look that you're after, something that maybe softens it out. Soft light is a good one. And then with your slider, you can make one more transparent than the other. And again, don't worry too much, because this is only going to be the base of it. So if you want to improve it, then obviously just go for more imagery. See down here, we've got some issues where we haven't completely painted out the edges. That's because we used something called the clone tool, which I'll show you next. So if we're happy with that, just save it. You can save it out as wherever you're used to, but for now, I'll just export it to the photo library, then it's out of the way. But what we might want to do, go back to gallery, and we might end up with something like this, where you've got either marks on the screen, which I did when we first started this video, or you've got where you want to just fill the edges in, and you haven't got enough, the image doesn't go quite how you want it to. So let's just use the clone tool. So again, up to adjustments, down at the bottom, we've got clone, down all the way down here, you've got clone. And then with your finger, just you can, well, or the stylus, you can put the cursor wherever you want to pick from, and then you can clone from that area. So if I start there and then I'll move it, and then I'll clone to there. Just make sure, oops, too much. Obviously make sure you've got light here in the middle and then dark at the edges. So make sure you're not putting light at the edges or it will start looking silly. If it's not looking too good in terms of see how it's gone square on the edge, I'll use a smaller brush with a lower intensity, and then I'll only be bringing part of it. You can see it's much more of a soft-edged affair now. Now we're going to mask off the edge quite a lot, so it's not actually that important right at the edge, apart from at the top and at the bottom, and obviously and at the sides. But what the most important bit is the middle, because we're going to paint over the top. So this bit in the top corner is like up here, 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 or anywhere that's going to have the circle over it is not going to be that important. So let's go back to the clone tool. Let's finish this one off while we're doing it. Let's go over here, over here. You'll see why I'm being quick and why it doesn't matter a great amount. Any second now. So a bit more up here. We're not after a repeatable texture or tileable texture. We're just covering the edges off a little bit. Nearly done. There we go. Now we can just copy that. So I'll do 3 fingers, swipe, and then I'll do just copy. Go back to the gallery, and we'll just go back to that coppery one. 3 fingers, swipe, paste. And now we'll blend that over the top. And we'll use, not sure what we'll use yet. Something will give me the effect that I want, like maybe something like that. And you can see now it's kind of changed the look quite significantly. So a lot of what you're going to be doing here is playing with these blend modes. And that's because a lot of this is experimental, and you don't, sometimes you're just trying to find the look and texture that you want. When you've got that texture and that look, then you can just save that out, and you can then bring it back in as a separate image. So you can do what I'm about to do, which is strike across and deleted it, strike across and duplicate. So with this one now, if you're happy with that, then we can take that to, or if you're happy with that other image, we can take that all the way to being a texture now, a Matcap now. So let's bring the black to the top, and let's have a look what that does, and bring the white to the top. So that's what we'd be faced with as our Matcap if we were to just export it as it is, which is no use, because that will be completely flat. There's no 3-dimensional look to it at all. And if I was going to do something with a really nice rim light around the edge, I'd put the white on just to make sure that it doesn't bleed into it in case we've gone slightly out with the edges. So let's just do, in fact, we'll do a white one first. So what we want to do now is do some effects of lighting on here. So we'll make a new layer over the top, and we'll go with our lighting. We'll just literally, we'll light it from the I'll show you what I mean. We'll light it from the top here, and we'll have it dark in the bottom here. And we'll make it look like it's got some kind of 3D depth. So first of all, I am going to blur this layer so it doesn't have to be too accurate at the moment. First of all, I want to put a white highlight around this edge, not all the way around, just around this edge here. And if you look, that's underneath the white, so it's showing a little bit of a line there, which isn't a problem. And oops, undo it. And we'll put a little tiny bit of light here, so I'm bleeding into the edge of the material. And then up here we'll go to adjustments, Gaussian blur, layer a little bit, and just blur that edge a little tiny bit. With the top one, because we have got a slight bleed on it, I'm going to duplicate that, keep bottom one hidden, and the top one, I'm going to blur the edge slightly there. So back to adjustments, Gaussian blur, and there you go. Now the dark you can see is because we've got no background. So we'll go background, white, and turn the black off, and then there's nothing shining through. You don't need the background actually, but it's no harm in doing it in case we have anything going through. So that's got a nice rim light. If you turn that white off now, you can see what I mean. So you're gonna have that kind of effect on the model. So the next thing we want to do is put another layer in. Let's put that back on. And we want to make it slightly darker on the bottom edge. Now we won't use black as a shadow. I generally don't like using black. I'll pick a color. So hit this button here, and that'll allow you to pick a color. I want to pick something dark, and then I'm gonna go and draw like this. And this is gonna give me the bottom right hand corner now has got like a shadow on the underside of the sphere. It's way too much, I know, so I'm going to go slightly less opaque and then a bit more of a blur. And we're going to keep making these layers until we get something that approximates the material that we want. So it's not too shiny, so we don't want a really big highlight in there. So what we do want to do is go back to a lighter colour, make another layer, and we'll bring that round here like this. And that's giving us a bit more light just around this top edge. And then with a large brush, hardly any, we'll just brighten it up in this corner here, and maybe this corner here as well. So what that's saying is there's two light sources. There's one coming here from the left. I'm going to go all the way to white. There's one here from the left, and there's one here slightly casting some light on the side here. You can see, so it's not going to be glossy, but it has got a little bit of reflection. And then the last one that I want to do, you always have what's called bounce light at the bottom. So now this blurred edge will give you this, but this is light that would be coming up from the floor. So if you look at anything, it always has a bit of what we call reflected light coming back up. So always try and put something in at the bottom just to give it a little bit of a pop. And then again, Gaussian blur, not a lot this time, just enough. And then maybe even make that a little bit more transparent, like so. And that'll probably do you for your first one. So what we'll do is we'll go, we'll just, for now, I'll just save these to the photo library, and then I'll move them for you and show you how I put them into Nomad. So we'll just save that one. And we'll just save it as, again, just in the library. If you want to have a quick look at them, I mean, I've made a lot this week. So you can see here, these are the ones we've made today. These ones here are comic ones that I've just been working on. So I'll try and make all these available to you. These are some images I've just been working on this last night. And then these are all the ones that I've put together that you're going to be able to use. So I'll give you those. The link will be down in the description below to all of those that you can see there. So let's use some of these other textures. These are the textures that I've been grabbing to play with. So go back into Procreate. We can stay in the same document, and I would suggest you do keep the same document, because what you can do is you can use these layers over and over again, and you'll see exactly what I mean now. So let's add in a metal. So we're going to go to import, so add, so actions, add, insert a photo. And we'll bring in, first of all, this metal, and then we'll go insert a photo again, and we'll bring another metal in. And there you go, you've got a couple of them to play with. And you'll notice you've got them over the top of your the ones that you did earlier. So you've got all of these to play with now. So what you first want to do is bring the, I should have really just put them underneath, but I didn't. So There you go. Now look there, you've got this bluey highlight. You can see this bluey green highlight. That we don't want that. And you look at which layer that is, and you'll find that it's probably this one. So first of all, we just need to color change that. So you can do hue and saturation, layer, and just slip the hue around until it's like a reddish color. Or if that's not working for you, then just use a saturation and take it back down to white. And that'll give you a fairly, that's a good start at the metal. We'll leave the white on simply because I don't want a black edge just bleeding into this. I generally use the black one when it's comic-y. It might look good while we're making it here, but it won't look good when you get to the next stage, really. Now you can put that on, the white on. We won't have the blurred one, we'll have that one, and make it a bit transparent, and that'll give you a grey. So that would probably be the way I'd work with this one for now. So we've got this first metal, and we've got this second metal. So let's combine them. So we'll make the top one a bit transparent. Maybe rotate it a little bit, I don't know. We'll just, I don't want it to look like brushed metal or anything like that. And then we'll go darken, and let's try a different blend mode this time. So what's that? Darker colour looks good. I want it a little bit less defined than that. So let's try that. So that's a saturation mode, so that's quite nice. And then what I can do is bring some of these other layers in that we've used before. And that'll mean that you might, because we're going to combine these layers back in here once we've rendered something, you might want to do something like that, and then bring that, change that blend mode again. And you're building up lots of different layers here, so you're getting lots of stuff coming through from underneath. So that's looking quite nice there. Maybe a bit darker than that. So let's just try there, soft light, and then maybe brightness and contrast. Again, a lot of this is just you finding the look you want. So, don't copy what I'm doing, just learn the techniques from me. So we've got to remember that these are going to be two materials in the same environment. So you can leave all of this light in that you've already made. But what I would suggest is you make this a slightly different material, because this is now a metal and it's going to reflect differently than the less reflective material we made for the coppery bit. So let's do another layer. We're going to go white again, and we're going to make this one a little bit more harsh. So we're going to do something like this. Think about the fact that the light's in the same room as the other one, so it's going to have the same sort of positioning, but it's going to be picking it up in a different way. So let's do those two and then blur them. And that's instantly looking more metalish. Now what you can do is metal can have a different colour. The reflection can be a different colour. It can pick up the colours from the scene. So you could change the colour again, or you could paint over a different colour. Try and bring in as much visual interest as you can, but think about the scene that you're building. So if you want it to warm up, then add some more yellows. And if you want it to cool down, add more blues. So let's put a little bit more, do another layer, and we'll do a bit light, a bit more browny. And then we'll go large brush, and we'll just bring that across the middle and underneath. And it's just giving it a little bit more of a different feel. And then again, I'll just blur it. I can't give you an exact way to do this, simply because this is going to depend what you build. But this is the kind of effect that I would go for doing the image that we're going, the kind of corroded copper look that we've gone for in this design. So that's that one done, and then one more layer. We'll go. This is now an extreme highlight. So this would be what you'd see when you see cars rendered. So when you're in like a studio environment. So if you're thinking that you'll always be thinking that you're drawing on a sphere, and that sphere is going to be so it's going to bend the light around. So the shape of the reflection in the surface is going to be curved. So I've just done that, and then I'll just, with the eraser, I'm going to erase that out. And these are like, what I'm faking here is light panels. You'll see what I mean in a moment. So this is where you'd see it on reflected on the bonnet of a car maybe, or when you're seeing reflections in glass. Or even a good example is go and have a look at a snooker ball, and you'll see that the lights reflected in a snooker hall are like this. There we go. And that's almost giving you that snooker ball look. Now what you can do as well is, because of what's happening, is the floor would be much more defined. So let's do a large bar across here like this, and then we'll blur it. Well, in fact, we don't need to blur that yet because I want to delete that. When I say delete, I mean like this. Give it a harder edge. So we'll blur that a little bit. So let's go back to blur, and then we'll make that a lot more transparent, like so. And then we'll just, because of the light coming in from the edge, we'll probably just delete it and just erase it a little bit from the edge. And there you go, there's a metal. It's too aggressive with this light, so I'm going to make this a little bit less visible, like so. And then that will probably do it. So let's turn back on our white on the edge. We'll turn off the black, so we've got the blur going into it. And then we'll go File, Share, and JPEG. And there you go. So how do we get those into Nomad? So you go over to your photo library or wherever you save them. You can have just saved them, of course, straight into Nomad, but I didn't. Select them, select those two, save them, and we'll go Save in Files. Where do we want them? So on our iPad, so it should say on my iPad, and then we want to go into Nomad Matcaps and just save them in there. And what you'll find now is that when you go to Nomad, then they're not there. And the reason they're not there is you have to reboot Nomad to get them. So we have to swipe up to get rid of Nomad. It's going to kill all the programs. And open Nomad again. And then if you go back and look at the bottom of Matcaps now, you'll see two more. And if we click on one of them, there's the first one and there's the second one. Let me just make that background a bit darker, and you might be able to see it a bit better. And we'll slightly warm the background up a little bit. And there you go. So there's one of the ones that you did. You might find, see how the light is quite aggressive around the edge. That's where we let it blur in. And you can see the blur around the edge here at the bottom. That's probably how we want it. This is probably too much, so you might want to go back and affect that. And just to confirm it, we'll have a look at the other one. And the other one's the same, so it's got that lighting in there. It's up to you. I mean, I've got lots of different versions of this one. So I made. Is there another one? I mean, these are ones I've done in exactly the same way. So I think that's probably the best example where I've taken away some of this hard light at the edge. But again, it's totally up to you. There's an example of like the pool ball idea, and you'll see it reflected really well in this one here. So if I was to now move, as we did at the start of this video, you'll see now that reflection bends with it. Now it looks a bit odd when you do this because it's moving that image. You're moving your model and the image is bending and reflecting. So I wouldn't suggest that you do this for your sculpting. That's not why we're doing this. We're making something that we can apply to our models and then make make an image. So we're doing some image making here rather than thinking about ways to make matcaps to sculpt with. When you're sculpting, I don't think you really need much more than these kind of affairs. And the reason that these are good is because there's no surface detail in here. These are just the lighting. And that means that when you paint, which you can do with the ones we've made today, when you paint, that's where the visual interest is coming from. But these kind of matcaps are what we'd use for the sculpting part. So stick with these, or make ones that are similar. Don't put any of the kind of nicks and the scratches and the bumps and anything like that in there. Just stick with really, if you notice, all of these default sculpting ones are just plain surfaces and just really pulling in the lighting. Even that one is just pulling in the lighting. Once you get down here, you can see a little bit of surface detail in some of these ones that I made. And then it gets more and more as you get here. And the more extreme you go, the more like these crazy things, then that's when you're really going to see weird effects. So be a little bit careful as you're doing it. Notice with ones like this, I've gone dark at the top and light at the bottom, and that gives you a much creepier effect. Obviously anything lit from the bottom is very different. So next video, we're going to use these on a character. So we'll probably use the one that I showed at the start of this video. So if we open this up, we'll go with this guy. And we'll use this chap, which is someone we've been using in our videos quite a lot. And we will try all of the different matcaps that we've got here, and we'll see what effect that's giving us as we work through it. And then we'll combine them and we'll do the post-processing in Procreate. So have a go with the materials that I've given you, the matcaps I've given you for this week, and then we'll do this image in the next video. I hope you're enjoying these videos. Please consider giving it a thumbs up, because it does help us get in front of other artists and show our work to new people. Please subscribe to the channel. We've got lots of content for either VR creation, for iPad sculpting, and upcoming soon is our ZBrush courses. And if you like any of those, please hit the notification bell, and that'll make sure we can let you know when we drop the next video.